son. Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, welcome back, folks. It is once again the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. I don't even know what to say about this one. This is an episode that is like episode inception. This came from the center of another episode. But I'm so excited that we're here doing this, and it dovetails so much of the content I put on this page. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have folks on this show. You are basically the co-host at this point. You've been on so many episodes of this show, and I love that. Our resident doctor, Michael Pridmore.
I like that.
Welcome back.
I'll be the resident doctor for the show.
You are. You're the resident authority. You're definitely my MRI guy. You know,
I can be that guy.
And two, before we get into all the cool stuff you've prepared for us on the ultrasound and medicine, I think we also have to address the fact that on the last podcast we were talking about how safe MRIs were. Like 2 days later, a guy got sucked into an MRI.
Like the worst
died.
Timing. Yeah.
So if you could kind of break down, like, to be fair, your statement is still true. MRIs are very safe. And you actually had a really good critique of what went wrong in that scenario. So I'm wondering if you could maybe just kind of explain that situation and where the critical errors occurred.
Yeah. Now that some time is settled. The timing of that, ironically, was after, my episode and during the week of MRI Safety Week.
Ooh,
it's just like
yeesh.
fresh
Double
topic.
hit.
Hey, everybody. Yeah. It seemed this was like not like a hospital. It was like a clinic, like in a strip mall type vibe. It was an imaging place. They had MRI. They let somebody get an MRI it was a dude's wife, the deceased man. His wife was getting an MRI, and for some reason or another, he was like, they have video camera in the suite that's like shows kind of outside the MRI room, and you can see into the MRI once they open the door. But for some reason, this family member was brought into the control room, which is called Zone 3. And it's where only like technicians and patients are allowed to be. Like some extreme cases, family members can be involved in their procedures for that. But even if that's the case, they're usually like demagged, as in all the metal, on or inside of their body is taken off, taken out.
As we've discussed, yes.
As we've talked about. And for some reason, this place was just really chill and let this family member back kind of in street clothes and like with this weight training necklace that was 20 pounds of metal around his neck. There's been other cases at other hospitals where people are wearing weight training stuff like that, and they do get stuck to the magnet. It's usually like ankles or like waist type stuff. But so the tech, once the scan was done, went to get the wife out, and techs are supposed to be physically able to help someone up off a table, like by like job codes, have to lift 50 pounds or something like that. No, that's not the code, but as an example, probably more. But so he just seemingly, he also put the metal stroller right next to the MRI. So once the door opens, we're like, why is there a stroller in there? There's no strollers that are made of metal that are cool to go in there. They have like kind of PVC pipe ones that you can use. So like red flag number 2, family members there, walkers in there. And then, he just lets the husband in there, and the husband walks right up to the magnet. It's not like he hits the door frame and just gets like sucked through or anything. Like, and a tech, I would know that. A tech would know that. The closer you get, the stronger the magnetism is, some of the physical effects that I talked about. But he just let him get like right up to it, So his back was against the whole of it, and the, necklace sucked back and essentially took him that way. And And then there's the other question of why didn't they quench the machine and turn it off? Because apparently he was there for like over an hour, like suffocating and having heart attacks. And they could have pushed that quench button and shut the machine down and saved a life, but they didn't. And yeah, I'd say the fact that that's all I know in my job status, that like no more information has been let out. Like I think they're doing their due diligence with it, but that clinic is probably not running anymore.
Well, good.
Good.
Yeah,
but as far as like who's to blame, it's like, you know, I talked to Tex about it. I was like, you know, is this the dumbest tech in the world, or is this just like a slip up, you know? And everyone is like unanimous, like that tech should have not let the family member into the control room to begin with, or the metal, you know. It was all there. So yeah, that was a great case for MRI Safety Week, boy.
Well, and I'm sure it's going to be emblazoned in the same way the butt plug thing is going to be emblazoned in, you know, it's anybody that learns this from here on out is going to refer to that.
Yeah.
It was just interesting that happened. I'm pretty sure it was like the week that episode went live, or the week before.
Crazy timing.
Yeah.
The first case that really got the media attention was in 2001. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but I mentioned it in my like real safety meeting or stuff, you know. So like 2001, there was an MRI incident where a little boy died, and like everyone kind of kicked in gear for that one. So they're like, whoa, because there wasn't even like a really strong consensus on MRI safety. But yeah, that kind of kicked it in. So I think this one too, because it got so well known. I hope the butt plug becomes just as well known. I'm pushing that real hard.
Me too. That clip did pretty well. People did like that story.
There is a video with this one, so I think that will make it, you know, a little more like the, you know, stable, impactful. Yeah, like the old PSAs when we were kids. Of
exactly.
Like gross lungs and smoking. Like, don't get that close to an MRI unless you need to be.
But do smoke cigarettes.
Because they're cool.
Yeah, they're cool. You want to be cool, don't you? So smoke.
Gotta fit in.
Yeah, the clip, that's going to be a great clip. So that kind of leads us, we had talked about kind of briefly at the end of that one about some of the tripper uses of ultrasound. Now, since that podcast, I've had Sterling Cooley on the show. I don't know if you watched that episode, but he's messing with ultrasound and its effect on microtubules in our neurons, and like how what is the connection there? Can we induce states of consciousness by applying ultrasound? And he is very convinced that is the case. He's convinced that's kind of the future of medicine, which brings us to what you're here to tell us about. And it's the actual list of wild uses for ultrasound that go well beyond whatever you think it's used for right now. Mm-hmm. And sound in general, the idea that we can use vibrations, a vibrating medium, to affect our body physiologically.
Yeah. And you just mentioned, I feel like I should add a slide of what he does, because like that, I didn't really throw that in, but we should get to that, the neuromodulation stuff. Because that is super cool. I kind of focused mine on like what is it used for in the clinic, and then like we can go from there. But yeah, he was a great guest for this. Like I even showed him to my ultrasound colleagues who actually do ultrasound.
That's right. What did they think of that?
They thought it was cool. I mean, they already know about it. They're like, yeah, oh, it's that guy. Like, where's he from? You know, just the typical like scientist, like look up, down, you know. It's like, that's my field. But you know, yeah. They thought it was pretty cool. It's legit. So yeah, I would say like he was a great guest for it, and like I'm going to be real elementary about it, and like, you know.
Well, dude, there was a lot of like higher tier stuff that he was kind of describing that even washed over me as someone who spent a lot of time of my own personal interest looking into this stuff. So maybe we should have done this one first, but whatever, it's fine. You can watch it in whatever order you want. Okay?
Yeah, there we go. That's a good way to put it.
You've prepared this delicious slideshow for us, which everyone can see now. And I'm super excited to get into this, so I'm turning the floor over to you. Take us to school.
Sweet. Well, yeah, hop in anytime, of course. But yeah, I just figured I'd come and be like this is ultrasound, from a guy who sort of has an authority. But I did pull a lot of information from this source right here. I like throwing in my sources and stuff. I also love how this book looks.
When is that book from? Like,
this
when
is
was it published?
Actually, this is the most recent edition. I think it was just a few years ago.
Nice.
Let me see if I can find it. Oh, copyright 2012.
Nice.
But yeah, it looks super.
Like it's from the 60s,
It looks like it used to smoke cigarettes in the 60s.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And like in the bathroom, but like nobody told on you for doing it, you could just do that. But yeah, so if you ever, this is a really cool book too. It's like, it can go as nerdy as you want, but I'll just say like the print's not super small. It's very digestible. Just walks you through the basics, just wants you to understand it. It's very good.
Yeah, I'm adding that to the queue for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so what is ultrasound? So yeah, like most people probably think of like baby pictures, babies getting checked on in the womb and everything, and that's its biggest application for sure. We'll talk about some other ones that are more kookier, but but aside from just the picture you see at the end, it's like what is actually kind of going on here physics wise is something I'll talk about. But yeah, it just uses sound to make these pictures somehow. So it's high frequency sound waves, helps us get good images of organs, tissue, blood flow. Sonography is also kind of a term that's interchanged with it. So if you hear, someone who's a sonographer is someone who works in ultrasound. But yeah, why would we use it? So there's, a couple different kind of two main things for it. Like a lot of it's diagnostic. So looking at tissues, like I just said, looking at fetal development, maybe checking out a tumor, also kind of guiding procedures for like biopsies or, needle placements or things like that. It's giving doctors a way to look under the skin without opening it up and kind of see where they're doing. There's also some therapeutic ones, which are like the cool, more advanced stuff we'll get in that I have at the end. But this has to do with like purposefully heating up things inside the body, breaking up gallstones inside of, or kidney stones, something like that. Or yeah, even treating tumors in some way, which is like kind of the emerging, new, exciting part about it. So yeah, how does it work? It uses waves. Waves. I thought about
trippy, dude.
Just like inserting the trippiest thing here, bro. But it is. That's what it looks like. So, but yeah, like kind of specifically, what sort of waves are we talking about? Well, it's called ultrasound because it's in a high hertz range. So, the human hearing range is around 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, and ultrasound is anything over 20,000 hertz. And, anything below 20 hertz is infrasound as well. So just a little plot here, just showing, kind of where it lies in the spectrum and what sort of different things it's used for. So like an earthquake is an example of infrasound, something so low. And yeah, with ultrasound, there's kind of this balancing between sort of the hertz frequency range that you use. Essentially, higher frequencies in like the 7 to 15 range or megahertz range, or like you get better resolution, but you can't penetrate down into the tissue as much. But if you use a low frequency, then you can actually, look at organs, say, deeper in the body, but it's just a lower resolution. So kind of like a seesaw trading off of the physics there is why I bring that up.
Whatever's most applicable to the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of had this picture of this very routine ultrasound. You can see he has everyone, if you haven't had an ultrasound before, there's a there's some gel that's involved, and they put it on a kind of this device, and they put it on your skin, and that little thing right there actually heats the gel. These all have little gel heaters. Isn't that great?
Interesting.
The gel's very cold.
Yeah.
And people complained about it so much that like every device, if not every device, there's like things on the wall even that are just like just tube heaters. It's great. It's the only medical device that I've interfaced with that has like such a comfort feature, I would say.
Sure. Sure. Well, considering what its primary uses are, it does make sense.
It does make scans go faster too, because people are like moving around.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just you want them to be as still as possible. Covering them in cold gel and then waving a wand isn't necessarily going to make them be comfortable. It's probably going to make them tense up a bit, but
right. Yeah, exactly. And that can just make your assessment as a sonographer take longer and, all that on top of the patient discomfort. But yeah, so there's kind of different, those are called transducers, by the way. So yeah, these are the device that essentially generates and detects the sound waves in ultrasound. And there's different kind of configurations here on the right. These have to do with some different physical property stuff I won't go too into, but the linear array is kind of meant for certain parts of the body, or each of these transducers are. They're kind of, some are better used in certain contexts. So in some cases you would want kind of more linear ultrasound waves going through. In some cases you'd want the more convex, which is kind of why we see a lot of baby images have that sort of pyramid look to it. So that's typically a convex, and those are used fairly common.
Yeah, pretty heavily.
Yeah. And then, phased array is just kind of like a more fancier version of the linear. And endocavitary, can you take a guess?
That's going inside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's going inside for sure. It looks like it,
Yeah. Yeah. Endocavitary is a very nice way of putting it. I hear it just used as called the transvaginal mostly. But it can be transrectal as well.
Depending on how spicy you want to get,
It doesn't go in the mouth, though. That's the only place it doesn't go. But yeah, so it's kind of cool. I get to talk about crystals. It works by converting electrical energy into sound waves by using piezoelectric crystals, which then travel through the body, reflect off tissue. And when they reflect, that sound kind of comes back. You can think of it like water ripples too. If you push out, like they'll eventually come back. And the transducer can convert those echoes into electrical signals, and then a computer translates it into either a sonogram or what we kind of see a lot as ultrasound images. Yeah. So just mentioning the piezoelectric stuff, just figured as a musician, as both of us being musicians, it's kind of a fun thing to just toss in there. This is like the basic for, guitar pickups.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the same thing that's being used here, essentially to push the ultrasound waves out and to pull it back in and detect it. So, it's creating electrical energy from mechanical vibrations and turning that into an electrical signal.
They also call microphones transducers for the same reason, because they do the exact same thing, just different application. But yeah, go ahead.
Exactly.
Another tie back to audio.
I love it. Yeah. With MRI, it was the gradient amplifiers, and yeah, it's, it's just all around us. But yeah, I had to throw in a picture of Tim Henson at the bottom down there.
Yep.
Yeah, the goat. But, there's actually piezoelectric pickups in that nylon string guitar there, especially. But yeah, just a fun little throwback to music nerd stuff. It all comes back. I'll just mention a little bit of math, but I'm usually not a big fan of it. But, kind of the big two formulas, if you just wanted to get into it, or like, the physical part of it. This is all about wave speed. So how fast how much power the ultrasound wave has behind it. So, that has to essentially is frequency and wavelength. So what hertz are we using? And then acoustic impedance, which is essentially the calculation of like how, like the velocity of the sound meeting the density of an object. So different objects will have different densities. So velocity will travel differently through different mediums. So it's kind of small down there, but there's some examples of just the speed of sound through air, the speed of sound through water, the speed of sound through soft tissue and bone. So essentially the different speeds that these ultrasound waves are being echoed back kind of help us know what type of material it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's all sorts of interactions that can happen with these waves going on. This is like the really like fundamentals of ultrasound. Just how did these sound waves interact with tissue? So there's these 4 main interactions. This is getting real textbooky, but I figured I'd throw it in there. But
No, this is great.
yeah. So, when an incident wave is approaching an object, it can reflect, which we see here. So that's just bouncing off the boundaries between, say, the tissue. We could say, a bone or something like that, for example. And then refraction is actually the bending of the wave as it passes between 2 different mediums. So, like running in air versus running in water, sort of, or if you ran into a pool, like how, you're essentially your speed is refracted from that just by moving from like one medium to another. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's also scattering that can happen, and this is just the deflecting of sound waves in multiple directions as it hits something. And then there's attenuation, which is how the reduction in the intensity of the ultrasound wave as it hits something. So all these interactions are essentially the like physical principles that go into how ultrasound works and how we get our images.
Right.
Yeah. I can slow down. Do you have any questions?
No. This is and honestly, I feel like the stuff that we're gonna probably get heady about, like we were talking about at the very beginning, is gonna be the neuro. You had the perfect word for it.
Neuromodulation.
Yeah. That's.
Yes.
I feel we're gonna get heady with that, but this is all super important context, and the comparisons to. Like, so this feels like I'm in an audio engineering lecture, because it's a lot of the same stuff. Like, we're talking about the same exact stuff. It's just a completely different application. And I think one of the things that is so trippy to me about ultrasound is how simple, like in terms of medical machines, it's a pretty simple machine.
Oh yeah.
And compared to like what it can do, it can literally see through stuff. Is safe, that it can be just about anywhere and operated by just about anyone, because it's just sound. I don't know. It really blows my mind sometimes, thinking like how simple this is, and like what are the other possibilities, which again we'll get into later. But like, this is the exciting stuff, is now we're finally at a point where we can say we can use sound to treat stuff, or like maybe that will be on the table here shortly. We can use sound to interact and influence our body. It's so much easier than having some kind of like nuclear power source thing, or a huge machine that requires multiple people to like operate safely. I don't know. It's just, that's why it's so mind blowing to me. Cause it's like, if it's so simple, why why isn't it being used for more stuff? But again, like that's a whole portion of this conversation we should just save to the end, because I have so many. I've done a number of episodes on people who 100 years ago were saying we should be doing this, and they were like shunned, and now we're like back here in science 100 years later. They're like, well, maybe we should do this stuff.
Right. And I will say, like, ultrasound does take over with just babies.
Yeah.
You know, that application. Ooh, you know, perfect. But it's definitely starting to be, it is used in other stuff, and it's even starting to be used in newer things now. And yeah, from an explaining it to somebody standpoint, it's like attractively simple.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, you know, I'm an expert
So
in MRI
dense.
and I can still I can still trip myself out about it because I'm talking about like atoms and stuff. For some reason, sound waves are easier. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, those are there. But
well, it's too, even with like babies' ultrasounds in the past 5 years, they've gotten crazier. Like this technology, now that people are finally looking at it, and there's technology to like back up these ideas that people have about uses for it. It's one of those things where it could escalate really quickly. I'm 100% of the mindset that this stuff is at least going to be involved in medicine of the future. And in some ways, and I'm sure in bunkers all over this country, it is being used in very exciting and exotic ways. But it is more accessible. And you're probably right, because everyone has heard a sound. Everyone, you know, maybe even learned that bats use ultrasound in a biology class. You know,
people are so cool with that idea.
It's not as hard for people to conceptualize as atoms, which very few people have actually ever seen legitimate atoms.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah. And then like the classical versus quantum explanations of it all. Like, yeah.
Sure. It gets way headier than this.
Nuts.
You know, wave propagating through a medium. That's like, in terms of physics, like that's pretty simple.
But I like how you said
entry level.
I like how you said this reminds you of like an audio engineering class, because like a lot of sciences are becoming more interdisciplinary, and like more people are coming together, and like, you know, whatever neuroscience is now is a amalgamation of chemistry, biology, psychology, you know. And yeah, I think that actually has kind of led to some of the advancements. Just kind of people working in different realms hearing about this and being like, oh yeah, like that's just like this, you know.
There's crossover.
A lot of crossover, yeah. And everyone who has a child is gonna pay for one of these.
Interface with it at some point. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, so the familiarity is there, and sustainability, like energy wise, you know, like I think we talked a bit about like how much energy an MRI uses, but yeah, nothing compared to an ultrasound.
Nothing compared to this. Yeah, exactly.
Or I mean, well, ultrasound is nothing compared to MRI. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so cool. So on that note, talking about some sort of parallels and, you know, crossover, the Doppler effect is used in used in ultrasound. I've had one of these before, but you know, like you can get these ultrasounds and they can look at any part of the body or whatever and see like blood flow direction coming from there. So, you know, in this case, you know, red is towards the transducer and blue is away from the transducer. But in the case of like a cardiac cycle, you could, you know, figure out where blood's moving in that case. So a lot of cool applications for cardiology, of course. You know, cops aren't using ultrasound to check your speed. It's actually just radar, but it's the same Doppler effect. That radar uses to essentially like frequency encode information. So see where stuff is moving. So that's like, you know, aside from babies, I feel like this is like another main interface a lot of people have with ultrasound. Yeah, this is just going into some like different modes of it, if that was interesting, but they're more or less kind of show an evolution. So like A-mold ultrasound was the first type that came out, and essentially just shoots sound one way and then calculates the echoes it gets back and essentially just tells you where stuff is. So that's why I kind of had this chart right here. So, the amplitude increases over time at these, 3, say, tissue boundaries like that. So it wasn't, kind of the way we think of ultrasound now. It's hard to think of it this way because it's not a picture.
Right. But this is like early form experimenting with using this as an option for anything.
Yeah, like if you imagine like a tumor being somewhere it shouldn't be, they probably would be able to find that this way. Be like, oh, what's this bump here that's not supposed to be there? Physically, exactly. But also, it would show up as like one of these. So yeah, they're used in some like ophthalmology, so like throat related things, because all those really small structures. So it's still used today, but just very specific applications. But this was kind of like the beginning of ultrasound. Not really, but if you will.
Yeah.
And so then the next, also, yeah, that was called amplitude mode, A mode. So this is B mode, so brightness mode. And this is what we're pretty familiar with today. So, you see the phased array at the top here, giving us like the curved look. That looks like a kidney. There's some arteries right there. Already showed some babies, but same thing as any ultrasound of babies that you've seen. And then there's this one, which is pretty interesting. It's called M mode, and I forgot to say what M stands for, but it's a way just for us. Oh, it's motion. Yeah, we look at motion with this. So it has like the fourth dimension, if you will, and represented here to show like time. So this is used mostly in cardiac imaging as well to look at, this is like what an echocardiogram. If you've ever had one of those, this would be along the lines of that. So
love that.
So yeah, that's like your basic clinical, what is ultrasound? What does it do? How do we use it? When do we use it? And the stuff we were going to talk about, after this part is also that, but this is more just stuff I thought it was cool to bring in. And I hate myself for not doing a neuromodulation slide because that's probably the coolest one and the one that that would be perfect for this show. But we'll get to that. Oh yeah, this one I thought you would find interesting.
Yeah,
so there's this thing called harmonic imaging. So it works by, putting out a pulse of ultrasound waves and listening for the returning echoes, but it also does it in harmonic frequencies, which are multiples of the original frequency, and it makes the images look better. It essentially reduces the noise.
Phase cancellation.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, what do you think about that?
That is super cool. I also like this. I've said this on a bunch of shows, but like the math around the physics of sound, I hate math. I hate having to do math. But one of the things I loved about the math for sound is that it was pretty easy. Like you didn't have to have an advanced understanding of mathematics to get it. And, even just like how a wave, what is a wave? What is a wave of a complex sound? How do you define a harmonic set? That anyone can understand that. Like you don't have to be a genius at all. And when you start to visualize it, like this one graph is visualizing, it gets really trippy and starts to look like some stuff that has been literally chiseled into ancient sites all around the world. And I can't help but think there's some kind of connection there. But yeah, it's like for something that is as fundamental, like wave propagation, something that is as fundamental to our existence in this reality as that, you think it's going to be more complex, but it's really not. The math of waves and what constitutes a wave, how do you measure a wave, it's like surprisingly simple. Anyone can understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it is cool seeing especially just the imagery with harmonics too. It's just like a Tool album, just at any given point.
Dude, 100%, 100%. But there's like a fractal nature. There's a logarithmic nature to the patterns of numbers that constitute sounds. Like that's what I mean to say by it. Is like you start looking at larger data sets or visualizations of even just that very simple math, and it starts creating some real trippy images.
Absolutely. And yeah, these are just fundamental principles of our reality, right? You know, like waves. Yeah, every light is a wave. It's also energy, but you know, we perceive it in multitudes of different wavelengths for colors and sounds, especially in our limited little part we can capture with our ears. But you know, who knows what sort of like crazy interactions are happening in physical space, like especially like cosmic stuff, if you want to go there. Like,
oh,
you know,
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Just with, you know, these sound waves are occurring and happening, you know, everywhere.
What always tripped me out is infrasound. Like if our ears were big enough to capture those waves, it would be a very chaotic existence. Evolution designed us to only capture a certain sect so we wouldn't be distracted. Like if we could hear infrasound, it would be terrifying. It would be like war, you know? But we don't. It's just filtered out. Our ears, we can capture harmonics of it, like thunder. We'll hear the top portion of the harmonic set that comprises that sound. We'll feel the subsonic stuff. And that's how I've always kind of understood infrasound is like, it's you're going to feel it more than you're going to hear it. You're going to feel the note rather than hearing the note. I don't know if this gets into like equal loudness curve stuff at all, but like there's also the ultrasound. How am I trying to describe this? In order for us to perceive frequencies that we can hear, in order for us to perceive frequencies that we normally wouldn't hear because they were too low or too high, they require a lot more amplitude. Like they require a lot more power, subsonic especially, ultrasonic not so much, but and I'm sure everyone has also done this test where like you test to see how much hearing you've damaged. Like you listen to a dog whistle and you start at 20 and go back and see where you can actually start to hear it. But those sounds are always there. Our body is just designed in this perfect way that filters out. It only filters and focuses on the stuff that evolution dictated was important for us to hear. The rest of it is like, whatever, you'll figure it out.
Not important. Yeah.
It's just very funny how nature did that. And you know, again, this is why dogs can hear much further out onto each side of the spectrum. It's why dogs will hear thunder before you hear thunder, or they'll of course hear a dog whistle that your hearing your ears won't capture, or you've damaged your ears to not be able to capture.
Yep.
But it's just it's like it always trips me out that like there's this whole other world of sounds going on every day. Like whatever sounds you're hearing, there's like literally an entire other worlds of sonic information, like the sound of the earth moving. I'm sure that has a sound. Earthquakes too. I'm sure they have a sound. We just can't hear it. We're going to feel it, if anything.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always tripped me out.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's true. Especially, think of the feeling it too, like how you usually feel the bass. And yeah, it does need more power to get pushed out just for us to be able to hear it.
The crazy part, like when you're at a concert and you feel that, what's crazy is that your ears aren't feeling that. Your body is now becoming the receptacle for that wave. So our body is comparable in size to what certain subsonic waves would be until you get, way further to where the waves are bigger than the human body. But that always trips me out too. And I'm at a show and I feel the kick drum or the bass just like popping me in the heart. that's a sound. My body is becoming the transducer there.
Essentially.
Like the wave is hitting me. I'm not hearing it, but my body is inferring that pressure, that variation in pressure, and my body becomes the ear. I don't know. It's just it's so heady.
There was one show I went to, and this isn't a promotion for this venue, but if you're in Nashville, we need to find a show for you so you can check it out. But they have like state of the art sound, everything. And it's like a 4,000 person venue. And I was there seeing Kraftwerk, and it was a seated event, which was tight.
Yeah.
And I was in like the front row of this section, so there was like a good 10 feet before the next chair in front of me, people walking by or whatever. But there's this bass happening, and it was tripping me out, and I hadn't taken edibles, and was not drunk, just for the record, but I like felt it here first, and it like hit my shoulders like a little bit later. And it was just this like one part of one song where they were just doing these like just this bass that I could like literally feel like that. And it is a physical phenomenon, but it was wild. It was so cool. Kraftwerk rules.
I was gonna say that especially in terms of like bass heavy shows, that must have been sick.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, go off on that tangent, but since you brought it up, I was like, that's like these if you could see these waves, especially like we get to lower and lower, like visualizing them on like a chart, we're talking like wavelengths of like feet, I
was gonna say too, I know at some point I saw a great picture where it's like a human body and the size of waves. Chart of wave height comparisons. Maybe that'll get me there. Of course, it's oceanic waves. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay, yeah, this'll do. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Just so people can kind of visualize what I'm talking about here. Oh, there we go. So like this, oh God, it's not. Every frequency has a literal size, a height, a wave height. And the size of our ears is the exact size for frequencies between like 2 to 5K.
Oh, yeah, the spiral cochlea.
Yeah, they capture, because the size of our ear captures those waves perfectly. An animal like an elephant that has huge ears, they can actually hear this sound because their ear is big enough to receive that wave. We don't receive that wave. We receive whatever harmonics exist from whatever that fundamental frequency is. And I think this might be the equal loudness curve, but regardless, that number is like a fixed number. And you can go ahead and share your screen again. It's the wave height. It's like an inch. This frequency is this high. That's how big the wave is. I remember just like when I started thinking about that, it kind of like really sent me down the rabbit hole of like, what is this thing? And again, like we're only interacting with like this very slim slice of the pie. Like, what if we could hear all the sounds? And if we could, it would sound terrifying.
Oh,
it would probably just sound like the most grating and obnoxious heavy construction you've ever heard in your life. Just 24/7, but louder.
Right. Or just white noise entirely.
Completely washed out, right? Because there's just so much stuff at such great amplitudes that our feeble human brains couldn't comprehend.
Yeah. And just talking about the human ear, if you like look at like diagrams of the cochlea, like it looks like an alien, like just kind of got stuck in our head, kind of reminds me of like the babblefish from Hitchhiker's Guide, but it's a very complex organ and is just so important to our survival. I guess, over evolution, it had to be super developed.
Well, and it's, like it's just crazy to me. Like vertigo is a great example. If you have problems with your ear, you might end up having vertigo. And that's because part of what gives us our ability to orient ourselves in a three-dimensional space is by hearing reflections off of stuff. So just the fact, even outside, like your ear knows what that sounds like and allows you to orient yourself, even if you aren't enclosed in a space. And, rooms get weird acoustically, at least, because everything with shape and a form has a resonant frequency, will have standing waves. And if you're in certain areas of certain rooms with certain amplitudes of sound, it can start to mess with your orientation because you're not getting that crucial information from reverberance of the space that you're in to tell you what way your head is oriented. And that always messed me up too, because it's like, you think it's just your eyes. Well, if I can see what the plane of the horizon is, then I'll never get disoriented. But then it's like you can, and it's because of sound. It has nothing to do with your eyes. It's why you can close your eyes and not get sick and throw up, because you're still hearing and creating a space around you that says, okay, I'm oriented in this way and can walk maybe a few steps in either direction without falling off a cliff.
And that's what trips me out about underground car garages. Like that sucked in pressure feeling is really weird.
It is.
Yeah. But
it's it's an environment that we're not necessarily evolutionarily, we weren't developed to survive or thrive in environments like that. But yeah, it's just weird that it's like my ear is sensing variations in pressure, and because my ear is sensing variations in pressure, I can stand up straight. It's so
very good at it. It's very good at it.
It's a very refined system. Evolution really did a good one there.
Yeah, no, really. It's crazy stuff. Kind of another cool thing I thought, we had mentioned this with the babies, but they can visualize, do like a 3D, sort of 3D or 4D. 4D would be time, so like a baby moving around, but make these cool, you can see your baby's face. That'll impact any parent. Inside
a human body at the moment, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you say, there's the nose, all that stuff. These all look fairly similar, but this one just looked like realistic, almost, just peeking out. Imagine it advancing to the point where it's just literally like looking in a window in somebody,
Dude, this could, they couldn't do this 5 years ago.
Yeah. What if the transducer was a blanket with a LCD screen on the other side, and you just put it right here and you could see, all that stuff.
With how just baby ultrasounds have exponentially gotten crazier in the past couple of years. Yeah, that's on the table, dude. And how cool is that?
Sweet.
How sick is that? You can look into somebody's body without having to cut them open. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the non-invasive part about this is the coolest thing. Same with MRI. That's why I really like that a lot.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, just imagining where this could go is insane, or where it is at on the military or secret side right now. We have foldable LCD panels, don't we? We can make transducers in all these shapes or whatever. Just saying.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. But yeah, that'd be super cool. Probably I can imagine a nice pregnancy belly shaped dome that's a one size fits all. It's doom, and it's just your wife turns into a fish tank for a moment with the baby just chilling right there with y'all,
Yeah, like a fish tank IMAX. Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, like the Sphere in Las Vegas, but smaller. but yeah, this is some cool stuff. I think I think probably more modern parents are seeing stuff like this now, and I think this is why I like science and stuff, because like I explained how all this stuff works, so it's like boring, but to someone who doesn't know how this works, this is like magic, like being able to see inside your wife's belly, indistinguishable from magic, that quote about technology.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yep.
So yeah, like show this to people like 200 years ago, they'd be, freaking out.
Yeah, they'd burn you at the stake. Yeah, that's exactly what they'd do. You'd be drowned immediately.
These hellish babies. Insane stuff. I got another one here. Oh yeah, this one, important. Just elastography is what it's called. It uses the ultrasound waves to essentially measure how stiff a tissue is. So we had talked before about like, looking at tissues or like seeing where tissue is, but say a healthy kidney is one way, but as you drink and ruin your kidneys, I'm sorry, your liver. I always mix up liver and kidney. But yeah, like say someone who drinks a lot, their liver is going to get fattier over time, and fibrosis is going to start creeping in, and it gets like stiffer. So a big application of elastography is essentially to diagnose fibrosis. But there are other applications for it as well. But it's very simple still. It's just hey, let's throw some waves at it. Oh, this person's liver is stiffer than the other one. What else they got going on? It's just like, I just love how simple it is.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think I have not. Oh yeah, this one's super cool.
Oh yeah, we had kind of briefly touched on this on the last episode. Yeah.
So I just threw in some nice images here and just to talk over it again. But yeah, this is like a really cool version, really cool thing. I think will probably become normal and used for a lot of specialized drug delivery. But essentially, these synthetic bubbles are made called microbubbles, and they're usually like a lipid layer or something like that that exists in the body. It's not like an actual like bubble of air, but instead of what you would think of as air on the inside, it's going to have like a drug. And a lot of drugs that pharmaceutical companies make, or they're designed to be ingested in a sort of way, either by injection or by mouth, or topical cream, what have you. And all those depend on like the delivery system of how the drug gets to its target location. So in the case of something like the brain, it's in a skull. It's kind of hard to punch through that, and not like we're giving injections directly to the brain anyways. But if we wanted to deliver a certain medicine that, say, had like a really poor half-life, where if they took it by mouth or even injected it into their arm, by the time it got to the brain, it wouldn't be inactive. They've kind of found a way to deal with that, where they can use these microbubbles that have a drug inside of it, and get them into the bloodstream, and then use an ultrasound transducer to essentially sonicate the microbubbles at the frequency related to their size, and it'll cause the microbubbles to split off into, essentially, pop is a way to think, like a bubble pops. The microbubble will essentially break off into tinier bits and be able to release the drug or the nanoparticles at that location where the transducer's at. So, brain tumor, you got tumor killing drug, you can actually deliver it, sonicate it, and release it right at the target spot. And that can be, without going into like a lot about, how pills work or drugs work, the applications there are insane because it essentially erases this bottleneck of drug delivery that medicine has been dealing with, and you can develop better medicines that can even better target things like cancer, tumor cells, or stuff like that. So, targeted drug delivery through ultrasound is maybe what you would hear in a clinic. I'm not sure. In research, I just call it like microbubbles because that's how I think about it.
It's way more fun. Yeah.
Bubbles, Oh, I could have put a Finding Nemo bubbles shrimp in here. Would have been perfect. But yeah, I think this is going to be huge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, when you were telling me about it on the other one, I was like, what? But I mean, again, it just makes total sense. And it's just wild that we can get to this point and it's just sound. It's like, dude, I would prefer this to a needle any day.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of it, like actually making, if the needle, it's not possible for the medicine to get delivered appropriately, this will get it right where it needs to be. Like, I just envision a future where this, on top of being reserved for the specific applications it's used for now, just being much more a part of every person's health monitoring and maintenance over the course of their life.
Yeah, even just, talking about getting away from needles, just using it as an alternate method of delivering medicine would be crazy. Like a lot of the, like if you have a headache, you take Tylenol, your headache goes away, but it also works if your arm hurts. It also works if your knee hurts. So it's affecting your whole body, and you have to have more of the drug to essentially, work on the weight, the dose, and all that stuff. And this could, really curb all those kind of considerations, like, imagine taking a pill at a doctor's office and you have a broken arm and they sonicate your arm and then your arm's numb, but you're not like groggy and maybe you can drive home. I don't know if that'd be good, but there's applications.
Only one way to find out.
Let's do it. Woo, but this has been like refined, I would say, a lot in the past like 10, 15 years. I mean, it's been going on before that, but it's very much in research now, and people are working with, chemistry labs to like develop these new types of like radio tracers or just particles for applications like this. So
yeah, sure.
I think this will be sticking around. Another one, which is like essentially using the same principle of, so we got these bubbles and we pop the bubbles, right? But, you can pop tissue if you do it the right way.
Sick.
So this is where we go into ablation. So a lot of everything else I was talking about was just imaging, but this is like therapy. I mentioned a little bit of therapy earlier, but so like theranostic application of ultrasound would be, let's not look at the tumor, let's heat it up and burn it. Essentially, every surgery is planned trauma, it's a very delicate thing. And just like this, you can find like a medical benefit to being able to destroy tissue inside the body without having to open somebody up or, go in there and all that. So I included this because this was one of my first ablation applications that I was introduced to when I was a budding PhD student. This doctor gave a presentation on bladder ablation, and they
Did they have real pictures or just diagrams?
They actually had like a CGI video for it. It has not left my mind at all.
That is hilarious. Yeah.
Shameless, but appropriate. Not it wasn't But I mean, it was like, how do you get it was there's an MRI portion of it as well. So it's an MRI safe, bladder ablation device. So one that was MR conditional and how you would do that. It was very interesting, but, so yeah, like just talking about, different ways to get around healthcare and treatment. But, in the case of like prostate ablation or, looking in the bladder past that, they would actually introduce a transducer through right here until they get to their, area of interest. And then, if they were, say, a tumor in the prostate, they could sonicate it that way directly. This is just the most ridiculous example because it's going into a dick.
It's hilarious, dude. It's hilarious.
This isn't the only way they can do it, but this is kind of like where we started with the ablation. So direct transducer to material ablation. Now we're getting to the point where we can, kind of use those harmonics and stuff as well to pick an exact point, say even inside the brain, and destroy like a brain tumor and leave what we would hope just the healthy tissue around it. So that's something I could see. I know people who are working on this from my job and past jobs and stuff like that. And yeah, there's been a lot of proof of concept, like actual MR thermometry. So using MRI to measure temperature changes, they would have that going on in an MRI machine and then apply the transducer, in the way that they thought would ablate the tissue that they hoped to ablate. And yeah, it's really come a long way. I wouldn't be surprised if oncology, like treating cancers really hops on this if it becomes more refined.
Well, this is one of the things that I was going to touch on here. So this is the perfect point for it. So one of the episodes I did on this show was about Royal Rife, and Royal Rife was a guy who was doing just this same thing, but in like 1920 or 30. So he was looking at, he developed this very intense microscope that at the time was the most powerful microscope, and it only used sunlight. You didn't have to have another power source. The comparable level of magnification would have been an electron microscope, but of course you have to bombard whatever your thing is with electrons and you're going to kill it. So his microscope allowed him to look at live tissue and cell samples, and the whole light portion of that, the way that thing operated was interesting in and of itself. I'm pretty sure it was called the Rife's universal microscope. But he also was developing this theory it was like everything with shape and form has resonance. And if something has resonance, it's just a matter of applying the right frequency or combination of frequencies at the right amplitude to affect that one thing and leave basically everything else around that completely unaffected. Right?
Yeah.
So his thing was a mortal oscillatory rate, an MOR, and he swore it was in his books, and some scientists that were around him could verify this, but he could obliterate cancer cells. And that was his idea. It was like, oh, well, this is how we do it. We don't have to get invasive about stuff. We can find where this thing is, bombard it with this certain combination of frequencies at certain amplitudes until it breaks up and goes away. But he was just a little too ahead of his time. Like this is exactly what he was talking about doing.
Oh yeah.
It's just the technology and of course the general scientific mindset at that time wasn't as elevated as it is now, because doctors used to recommend what cigarettes to smoke. So, but that is, and there's at least a portion of me that's at least okay with the idea that in some bunker somewhere, this science was probably happening 40 years ago, if that, if not longer than that. Because if this is what's coming out in like general medicine now, military medicine was probably on it a while ago. And a lot of people don't realize this, but military industrial complex developments of technologies also stretches into medical. Because who's going to need more medical procedures than people that go to war?
Oh, yeah.
And there's been some pretty exciting stuff about uses of ultrasound to like aid in bone regeneration after bone breaks. Sterling was talking about some studies where they were like elongating damaged nerves, like nerves that had been cut off. They were able to, using ultrasound, they were able to have them regrow like fractions of an inch.
Like,
and you know, I don't necessarily know what the mechanism there is, but now like what all the work that Royal Rife did now, it got sucked into like the hippie crowd, like the new agey crowd. So they're like, everyone's like, I have a Rife machine and it plays Rife frequencies.
No, they killed it.
It's anytime you see that is not Royal Rife. It's not what he was doing. And it's a bastardization of his ideas. He didn't have a frequency for love. He didn't have a frequency for hate. And the sounds that he was using to do that, if you were to hear him, you wouldn't like it. Because you're not meant to hear it. It's meant to obliterate a cell inside of your body. You're not listening to it.
Right.
You're not going to sleep, you know, meditating, listening to that sound. It's a sound you would hate to hear, but you're not supposed to hear it. It's supposed to be targeted directly at a thing specifically, and it would, you know, destroy that thing. I also think it's kind of interesting too, because it's like the cat. I hear the cat. The Rife thing is crazy to me because it's like a part of, was it just people's ignorance at the time, or they didn't want to think that this was possible? Was it too disruptive to the players that stood to stand to benefit the most? But you know, this ablation is a very simple physical concept, and anything that has a structure and form in 2 or 3 dimensions has resonant qualities. And at that point, it's just a matter of measuring the dimensions of that thing to find what the resonant qualities are and bombarding it with a certain amplitude. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Again, it comes back to like, it's simple. Conceptually, it's very simple. And this stuff sounds like it's crazy and super future tech, but this is surprisingly low tech. Compared to MRI, this doesn't have shit on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like MRI is way more complex than ultrasound, but to think that you could use ultrasound to, again, have physical effects on your body, with no damage. Like, and if the other parts of your body absorb some of those waves, it's fine because they're not resonant to that combination of frequencies. It's specific to a you know, definable structure and form.
Yeah, because you know, the physical waves, you know, create a shape as they're going through the medium. I should have put a picture up here, but yeah, like you can see, you know, where the ultrasound transducer is, how the waves are going through, say, a brain. You know, they're hitting the skull and kind of getting reflected off of that. But there's like a point where I didn't go into this part about it, but there's like a beam hardening kind of thing going on where the reflections can interact. Those can cause harmonics as well, but you can essentially use that intentionally to create a high frequency spatial location. And that's how heat is happening here, you know, is the waves are essentially hitting themselves so hard it's creating physical heat. and then that becomes so large that it starts to break apart the tissue. Yeah.
This is a great point. There's two tangents I want to go on here, but the first one is, again, like the idea of a transducer, it applies to so many different physical things because a transducer just converts electrical signal, right? From one to another. And, exactly. You've got it on here.
You got Tim Henson.
Thanks, Tim Henson.
Thanks.
And like even when you're hearing waves, what you're doing is capturing power. You're capturing energy. Your ear is capturing energy, and we just interpret it as sound. But that's like I don't know what the word I'm looking for
pressure
is. Yeah, like the pressure, that is power. It's like a raw power, and our body is just kind of converting it into something that we can interpret. But like it okay, let me also try and think about the other thing I was trying to say. It tied into what you were just saying. Oh God!
Reflecting at a certain point, a beam hardening, like raising temperature.
The beam hardening, raising temperature. Right. It's energy, right? It's using the friction of pressure to transmit energy. But I don't know. It's just so trippy to me that it's like the first wireless. Like it's the first. I don't know. It's not so. But the other thing I was going to say is, I lost it again. Hilarious. Hilarious.
Oof.
I'm sure it'll come back to me.
But
this is surprisingly low tech, but also cutting edge at the exact same time. And I am just excited that this is now finally being discussed seriously. Like, because there was a long time where people were trying to use sound in this or many other types of legitimate therapeutical ways. But they just got shut down because it was, it didn't, whatever. They couldn't prove it to the standards of the time, or it was too ahead of the time.
It's hard. Without the tech, you just sound crazy, I guess.
Kinda, yeah. This is the other thing. So this other dude I've had on the show, Jason Coher, he's designing a low energy nuclear reactor. And what he's doing in that nuclear reactor is he's actually creating a bubble of air, but he's got like a nickel. He understands the science way better than I do, but basically in summation, what he's doing is he's creating a bubble of air in this cavity by using sound, ultrasound, to create this bubble and hold it in place. And then also use sound to cavitate that bubble. And when that bubble cavitates, light is emitted. And that's like a scientific thing that has already been discovered well before he tried to do this. Huh. When you collapse this a bubble, a photon of light will emerge from it. So his idea is, can I create a device that can do that so fast that the energy that gets released from that bubble collapsing, I could capture it and use it. And again, that's wild. Whatever that is, that's an energy, that is a nuclear reactor. He would have to kind of explain the science on it, but that I've done a couple episodes with him now, and he posts a lot on TikTok. But there's another potential use of sound or ultrasound that would benefit. Again, if that does exist, I'm sure there's a bunker somewhere that already has that kind of.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if in the future there's some kind of energy alternative where ultrasound is like the major player. I don't know.
It's crazy. I would say, if the bubbles he's using are small, then ultrasound would be a great application of that already. That's wild. That's super cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He's gotten to the point where he can create the bubble. I'll have to go on his page and catch up on it, but he's been working on it for a year, and he's a machinist, so he can come up with these very complex pieces of equipment, like design them in his mind and then machine them. And so he just is like, well, whatever, I think I can do this. And he has like a background in that kind of electrical engineering that kind of led him to that space, and he has all the skills and tools to do it. But I also want to make sure too we talk about like the neuro. What was the word you used again?
Neuromodulation.
Neuromodulation.
That's good, because this is my last little slide, and it's perfect to go into it. But yeah,
wow.
Look up Neuromod.
Ultrasound.
We talked about that. So yeah, the Butterfly Network is a company that already exists, and they're trying to push this portable ultrasound device that you can run on an app on your phone. It just connects to the transducer via Bluetooth.
Wild.
And that exists right now.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for investors, so it's, commercial availability is their goal, but not quite, where they're at maybe right now. And of course, artificial intelligence is going to, come in and caress this field like a sweet baby and say, no, you do these scans, let me get your image quality up, let me increase like this efficiency, and just having like big data networks or learning language models to look at like different diagnoses and have training data based off thousands of and millions of existing ultrasound images that are hopefully not deleted off hospital networks or anything like that. But, I think just the wide availability of just how many ultrasounds there are being as one of the most used medical imaging devices, AI is going to have so much training data that will make it pretty solid, I think,
like rocket this forward in a lot of ways.
And I pulled this off a website, so it must be public, but this little screenshot at the bottom is from one of GE's products, I guess. So they already have this like built onto their ultrasound machines.
Wow.
Just boop, boop. So yeah, this is looking at the heart. It's sectioning off these different areas of the ventricle and giving you like a cardiac strain analysis from it. So I don't know, that stuff, it'll be sick. But yeah, that's all I got as far as prepared slides. But
love that. That was beautiful. I've pulled up neuromodulation, so I'm going to share my screen here too, so you can
I'll stop. Yeah, imagine being able to like get off heroin with just someone putting a thing up to your brain.
Yeah, so this AI overview here is neuromodulation is a medical field that alters nerve activity through a stimulus such as an electrical one to treat a variety of conditions by controlling nerve signals. It is used to manage conditions like chronic pain, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, and depression, and can involve both non-invasive and implanted devices. Examples of neuromodulation include spinal cord stimulation for back pain and vagus nerve stimulation for epilepsy. Yep, that's exactly what Sterling Cooley was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so
it's very trippy.
We can get into the neighborhood of like, there's actually another like brain modulation thing that uses magnetism to actually affect parts of your, that actually like say turns off or turns on different parts of your brain. And that's like where the ultrasound applications are also aiming, because they, can kind of work not off magnetism, but off the sound waves.
Sure.
So yeah, like I'm trying to look up some nerdy stuff on my end too, to go along with it. But yeah, so it's called like acoustic radiation force is like the kind of a physical effect. We're probably might get into academic stuff there.
Acoustic radiation force is a physical phenomenon resulting from the interaction of an acoustic wave with an obstacle placed along its path.
Yeah. So it's like using ultrasound at a certain strength to where it's not destroying tissue, like an ablation. Ablation's like, fuck it, let's go,
Yeah,
but
we're
this is
going
like a
all
little
out.
more tame to where it just kind of like flicks, say something on like a molecular level. And like there's videos, but I wonder if they're with ultrasound in the way this is.
Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of videos here, but no telling what's in them.
Oh yeah, some of them are terrible. It's just like a Zoom call. Like, you can tell his laptop is like open instead of facing him, just because you can see the ceiling type. I will say, yeah, there might be some shorts out there if you look the right way, but yeah, especially with like temporal lobe epilepsy. Just to get into, yeah, so like temporal lobe epilepsy. So temporal lobe is like kind of around your ears in your brain, so it's like more towards the surface as opposed to something deep in the brain, like your cerebellum or, pineal gland. But so because they're closer to the surface, the ultrasound waves can propagate through there like in a calculated way, let's say. And yeah, in the case of epilepsy, it's the sort of physical manifestation of what's going on is electricity is going through the brain like at a unnatural rate, or a not pleasant rate too, so the brain's just being bombarded with electricity. Usually at certain points, these signals are getting sent off. So one recent treatment that's come from Johns Hopkins and a bunch of other places now is this like electrical stimulation and focused ultrasound. That's usually what it's called now, is focused ultrasound, for the more like therapy type stuff.
Sure.
And that can like target that one spot and essentially suppress that electrical activity through just bombarding these like acoustic radiation, i.e. sound.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a very fancy way of just saying sound.
Yeah. But that's a very, very awesome one application right there.
And again, like this is dude, when I was looking into Sterling Cooley, I was like, there's no way this is legit. Like, this has got to be some hippie stuff. But I was looking into it more, and it actually dovetailed with another episode I did with a guy who's an acoustic physicist. His name's John Stuart Reed, and he went on at least a little tirade on our episode about vagal health and vagal tone. And there's this whole idea that they're like in the womb, what that sounds like to a baby is an ocean, rushing water, waves. And there's this idea that evolution had us evolve to hear sounds of nature, and that the sounds of nature are what helped certain physiological processes in our body to operate correctly. And this is his idea, and I'm inclined to believe it, that one of the reasons why mental health has become such a problem, especially in the past 200 years, is, we have a lot more freedom to focus on things like that, but also because humans have become more divorced from being in nature. We don't hear wind rushing through trees. We don't hear water trickling. And there's this idea that from the womb, a sound of nature, waves crashing on the shore, that the baby hears in there, that is like prepping them to then hear other sounds of nature that allow their body to operate at peak efficiency. But what we've done is remove those sounds from our sonic diet, and we don't interact with those things. And because we don't hear those things at the frequency that we should, vagal health is lower, and the vagus nerve being so interconnected to all the other processes in the body that there's like, a ripple effect, or no pun intended from the wave or ripple effect. But but just like all the way downstream, it creates problems. And it's because we're supposed to be hearing sounds. We're supposed to be hearing the sounds of nature. Those evolution designed us to, operate. They aided in the healthy operation of the system that is the human body. And it's just weird now to see a lot of the stuff I've talked about on sound on this podcast is definitely hippie shit. It's like way heady and it's like really hypothetical.
Have you ever heard this before?
Exactly. Have you ever heard this on weed?
Yeah.
But what I love about the episodes that you've done here is that like you're really letting it. This is mainstream science now at this point. This is not fringe stuff. This is not stuff that is being balked at legitimate, health institutions that specialize in health. This is a wave of the future. And I just can't help but think that this is just going to become more a part of every person's lifetime of health care. There's going to be more applications of sound, which excites me, but also terrifies me because just like all the things we've talked about and all the good uses, it could be used for bad, right? It could be used for bad, or there could be things even worse. There could be things that we don't even know we're doing that are affecting our health, and it's because of the stuff we're putting into our ears less than it is into our mouths or into our butt.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah. That's why I love having you on here to talk about this because like this is real science. This is currently going on. This is, the cutting edge of what the future of medicine is gonna be. And I guess, maybe if you want to kind of be a little speculative yourself about, what you know about this industry, what you see that exists, and how it plays out over the next like 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. I could let's see it like okay, like we get the internet and now we can like look up anything we want, right?
Right.
We get an Apple Watch and it tells us a lot about our health now. It's like, I think even if not FDA approved, is recognized as a viable biometric tool.
A legitimate biometric. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if at one point, kind of like the Butterfly Network product that I showed, is that, you just have like a thermometer at home, you just have a little ultrasound that's maybe not super powerful, but powerful enough to like, let you know if, something, I don't know, half an inch under your skin is happening or not, just give you like a cursory look. And then you go to the big boy machine, at the hospital or something like that. Or, even more of like a clinic space, like Walgreens clinic space, like the little blood pressure machines there or something. I could see something like that from a product wise coming out. And then that could kind of make learning about the body especially more accessible to people, or like, I don't know, when I was a kid, like guts and organs grossed me out, like most kids, but if I could see my own, I'd probably be cool with it, right? I remember when I broke my arm, or I didn't break my arm, I cut my arm open and I was like looking inside of it then, even though I was 8 years old and terrified. So I think it could just like, kind of like with technology, like you give something that's super specialized and for like one use case to just everybody, and they'll probably find some stuff for
a million ways. Yeah.
As far as like the physical, the physics behind what makes ultrasound possible and seeing what people could do with that in the future. It would be pretty crazy if we had like ablation guns or like, you imagine like talking about like image guided ablation, like looking at a structure that's this big inside someone's body and placing them in just the right way to where just that little piece of matter gets zipped. What could keep you from doing that on a bigger scale?
Well, what's funny you say that is because we already have those. They're called LRADs, long range acoustic devices.
Let's go. This is why I'm on this podcast for this.
we use those to, they used them a bunch in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're used for crowd control, but they can be hyper focalized. Like you could be in a room full of people and someone could be blasting you with an LRAD and only you would be hearing it. That exists. That has existed for a long time. I'm going to pull this up. I've brought this up on a bunch of different episodes, but this is an LRAD, and we for sure have them, and they are absolutely used for that exact purpose. Now, any of these, there's like a safe operating range. This will give you an idea. It's like this thing and a control panel, right? And it will have pretty well labeled what is the safe range. But what they don't tell you is that you could probably kill someone with this. Like that's what's crazy about this is if you piped enough power, focalized at the right point, you could kill someone. I mean, even on a lesser extent, like you can definitely, if you trick out your car with 1 million subwoofers and you go in there, like you can f your heart up. You can stop your heart. Yeah. Sound will do that. Okay. It is that powerful. It's transfer of energy. Mm-hmm. And,
yeah, just imagine if you had 4 of these all pointing at each other and like something in the middle.
You know, at the very least, your eardrums will just rupture. Like this will cause physical effects, even though it's this invisible thing propagating through air.
You got a jet taking off at 20 meters. It's crazy. I love that it's shaped like those old air cannon things too. That's what I was thinking when you were saying this, and it's shaped just like it.
It's this.
But that is,
dude. This is, and these are all over the place.
That is ultrasound. They should be calling that,
dude. Yeah. Seriously. Mega sound. But this is, you see the NYPD right here. This is actually the Wikipedia page. There's like you see an NYPD. Yeah, there you go. This is old. This is very old, actually. But they're used a lot as a weapon on Navy ships. Like this is no joke, a legitimate weapon that is all over the place. It's just using sound. But
crazy,
you know, with enough power and being able to focus that beam of broadcast, like you could kill someone with this. That we are at that point. There's no way the military uses this like this and has not like tested the extremes on animals, at least. But like that is the reality of that. So
yeah.
Again, it's a double-edged sword. Like part of the military researching into these things means they're going to develop some pretty killer medical application stuff for veterans first and then for the rest of us later. But by that same token, no military contractor is going to build a device for peace. It's not meant to heal. This is not meant to heal you or diagnose you medically. This is meant to hurt, like actually hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
as far as
sick.
Like, yeah, that is metal. And I love it. It made me think about LiDAR as well. That's not kind of getting outside of ultrasound or getting into radar again, but I mean, kind of like macro level, something that's fairly recent in my knowledge of geographical surveying tools. I don't know a lot of them, but you know, just hearing about it's like, that's crazy. You know, talking about just being able to see stuff that you couldn't otherwise. But yeah, weaponizing sound. That's
Dude,
brutal.
they weren't. The Nazis had a couple plans to weaponize sound, and you know, to a lesser extent, sound has been weaponized before. And the comparison that I'm going to draw here is the Aztec death whistle. Have you ever heard one of those?
I love that.
It's a whistle that they used to play, like they used to blow into, and it sounds like a bunch of people screaming just by the construction of the whistle. So imagine you have a bunch of Aztec warriors and they're hiding in the woods, and they all just start blowing in their war whistle, and it sounds like thousands of people screaming bloody murder. It's genius, but that's more like a psychological, like the sound isn't affecting who they're fighting, but it's a more like psychological aspect of weaponized sound.
I was hoping it was like a whistle and then, it's like pointed at somebody and they like,
that would be super sick. They should have done that.
But to that point, there's something this is where it can get heady, is I'm pretty sure some ancient civilization knew all this at some point, because sound is such a easily accessible thing that we interact with, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you were talking about like temples resonating with certain frequencies that related to songs and stuff. And like, yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if there's like just some like hidden temple somewhere that just uses sunlight and you can do an ultrasound.
Well, dude, it's the more we analyze the ancient sites of from history, like there's so many layers of messages encoded in them, and a lot of them we don't even know until our science confirms it in some way, and then we can be like, oh, they actually chiseled that into stone thousands of years before we thought we figured it out.
Right.
But sound, like, in my opinion, those buildings were built for their sonic qualities. They understood shape and form and resonance. And the reason that churches were designed the way they were, the reason that those sacred temples were designed the way that they were, was in part for good acoustics. They didn't have PAs. They needed a way for someone to be able to address large groups of people and everyone hear it.
Well, they figured out how to make sound. They figured out how to manipulate sound.
Yeah. And it was like ingrained into their culture to a point where like they chiseled it into stone. It was that important.
Yeah.
I that's why it trips me out that science is just now getting to the point where they're like, oh yeah, maybe we should look into utilizing this thing in a certain way. And it's like, yes, we didn't have ultrasounds thousands of years ago, but I'm sure they were using sound in at least medicinal ways that we are just now finding out from science is like not so hippie. It actually could be the case. So,
yeah,
it's super exciting to see like where this could lead us. And it certainly is trippy. And again, it's like low tech. That's what I love about it. It's low tech. And it's something that every culture has figured out a way to kind of ingrain in there. I mean, even this is super esoteric, but the idea, like the first words of the Bible, God spoke. Sound. Then things came into existence. Sound is what brought things into existence. So,
yeah,
like if you go down that rabbit hole, there's tons of people that study esotericism that are like, oh, dude, sound is coded in all this stuff, all these texts. It's revered for its power. And again, that probably goes back to like the vibratory nature of all the atoms that comprise reality. Like everything is vibrating. Vibrations and waves are how we construct the world around us. And, even the ancients especially understood that to a level that we're just now kind of catching up to or accepting en masse.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Especially like with that dude you were talking about, like the only thing keeping him from discovering ultrasound was a high powered transducer that could send out acoustic waves at a certain frequency that was strong. If he probably explained that idea to like Nikola Tesla at the time, he'd be like, that's a lot of power you're asking for, even for the best of what they had to work in with there. But yeah, once you have that transducer and, a computer, of course, but like it's almost like just these little steps of technology just can open up stuff like that.
Well, dude, this was super sick. Thank you for putting together that slideshow. And kind of like, what's funny is I've talked about sound so many times. I've never done an exploration of like the basic fundamentals of anything. So having like the diagrams and being able to kind of visualize a lot of those concepts. And again, just reiterate to people that this is not fringe. This is serious medicine, serious medical applications, and it's only going to become more for the more uses that we find for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd love coming on and talking about this stuff with you. And yeah, even though I'm not like a super expert in this field as much as I have been for like the MRI spot.
Dude, you're certainly more of an expert than me.
But it was, I loved breaking down the physical components of this with a audio engineer.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was a treat for me to go about it that way as well. So yeah, I like how, I guess fundamental is, I guess the feeling I get about it. It's so just sound, talking about magnetism or something. It's like, yeah, whatever, but like, yeah, sound is so foundational to everything in our lives in all these ways. So it's crazy seeing, people go nuts with it. And,
well, magnetism too, for sure.
Yeah.
Magnetism. What propels bodies through space. So, it's one of the factors there. So,
or like, there's some people who are very influential in the world who are confused about how magnets work, especially when they get wet.
You're talking about ICP, right? The guys from ICP.
Yeah. So insane clown posse for sure. But yeah, it's just the sort of lay person's understanding is so much easier when you just talk about sound. Just like, oh yeah, sound's a wave. Waves get bigger, smaller, just like light, kind of.
Yeah, dude, it's just wild. Like you're operating with what you do. You're like operating at the highest level of this stuff. But yeah, it really is just like magnetism, sound, fundamental aspects of reality that exist, whether humans build machines to harness it or not. And it's wild that's what you do. It's just like your everyday now.
Yeah, it is. No, and that's what's I think cool about going into medical physics as a field, because it's like very new. Like one of the people I work with, she's the first medical physicist who's a woman. But
wow.
Medical physics is like just this approach to explaining how the body works and how you can use stuff that's been lying around essentially to make healthcare better or what have you. Like not a lot, like medical physics is really budding right now is what I'm trying to say. So,
you're on the forefront.
Yeah, no, it was cool. Like with my curiosity just in MRI and kind of how I got here to where I am now, it's super cool. And just learning about these just really basic things that it feels more like you're, like, I don't know, arts and crafts more than like just some theoretical outside of myself, can never think of, but yeah, I love coming on here and talking about this stuff with you too. And especially having the, different perspectives that you have and different approaches and other knowledge too, like the patterns that we point out a lot in between different fields or subjects, like the harmonics bit.
there's more crossover, there's more crossover. If you just do a little bit of reading, there's way more crossover than what you'd think. Because both of these episodes, we tied it back to the recorded music industry. So that should tell you right there. But dude, thank you so much for preparing that awesome slideshow and coming on and doing this. I'm sure we're going to find some other trippy, heady medical thing that you stumble across to do another one of these on. But it's always a pleasure having you on, and this was super fun.
Always great being on. Thanks for having me on again as you're the most esteemed guest. If something happens to you, you can
please carry the torch. Yes, please carry the torch.
Yeah, I'll pull out the letter that I haven't opened yet from you, and if you're reading this now, here's my password to the podcast.
And you are in charge of this now.
I'd be happy to.
Love that. Well, this has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast, folks. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. Toodaloo.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.